Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you. So, if you watched our pack opening video, where we opened, I believe it was 80 of the newest pack there, as well as got the new structure decks, you might remember that we opened one copy of Lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. At the time, I kind of said, I think I made a comment like, I'm not super interested in this deck, I probably won't build it, but, after going through my collection and dusting all of the ultra rares that I wasn't using for anything, which I like to do usually when I buy into a pack, for a lot like we did with the new pack here. Then I decided, you know what, I have enough craft materials left over that I'm going to go ahead and just make the deck anyway. Like I said, I pulled the Lovely Labyrinth here, but I had to craft the Welcome Labrynth. I also ended up making a couple of Elder Entity Notices as well for the Dogmatika Punishments we're playing. So, Lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. This is the latest control deck on the block. Note that I said control and not Floodgate. Because even though this deck does set a lot of back rows, it's not one that I would call a floodgate deck, but more of a control deck. But before we get too much into the differences between that, real quick, just want to remind everyone that I did very recently launch my Patreon page. Feel free to check out the link in the description if you'd like to see that there. In addition to posting daily content here on the YouTube channel, I also post more daily content over there on the Patreon as well. There you'll find some previews for upcoming videos, exclusive games, Q&As, and a whole bunch of other perks, with more perks to be added in the future as well. So it's just $5 a month, the price that you would pay for a pack, but just once per month, and definitely a lot more value than a pack full of filler that you would get. But in any case, like I was saying, yeah, control versus stun. So what exactly does what exactly is the difference between the two, rather? As far as I'm concerned, that is the inclusion of Floodgate cards. Floodgates being continuous, spell and trap cards, or sometimes monsters, that just have effects that say you can't special summon sometimes period, sometimes this kind of monster, sometimes they negate effects. You all know what I'm talking about, right? Skill Drain, Rivalry of the Warlords, all those very fun cards. But this deck isn't playing any of those. Labyrinth is actually notably all about normal trap cards. So that's going to be stuff like Torrential, Compulsary, Infinite Impermanence, Dogmatika Punishment. Like I said, that's why I've got the Elder Entity Notices here in the extra deck, as well as, of course, the in-archetype Welcome Labyrinth and the pretty much in-archetype Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch. You'll notice that all the back that we're going to be setting is all normal trap cards, so they're just one and done. But this deck actually gains a lot of advantage off of using normal trap cards, particularly off of removing monsters with normal trap cards. The Lovely Labyrinth here, for example, gets to destroy a card either on the field or at random in the opponent's hand when you activate a normal trap card, for example. So that's going to be a lot of the focus of this archetype, is just trying to get those Floodgate, or not Floodgate, definitely decidedly not Floodgate cards, those face-down trap cards flipped up, so that we can, of course, not only answer our opponent's threats and summon threats of our own from the deck, but also so that we can resolve our additional abilities as well. Now, ideally, I would like to be running 2 copies of this. I'd like to have a second in the deck, if I had pulled one, but you really only need the one, and if you didn't pull, if you only pulled one, or if you're trying to just craft the deck from scratch and are a little bit hesitant of how many copies you should craft, you really only need the 1 copy. The second is nice, but there is actually going to be in the future another Labyrinth monster that's also got a pretty high level that's even better to summon than the Lovely Labyrinth here. So in a perfect world, I would have 2 copies of her, but I'm only running 1 for the time being because, well, like I said, I don't want to spend any more craft points on this deck at this time. I've been liking the deck a fair bit. I've played it a little while here in the Duelist Cup, not too much. I think I've played maybe about a dozen games or so with it, and the play style is fairly interesting. I thought it was going to be, I was honestly even a little worried that it was going to be too similar to something like Altergeist, for example, but honestly it doesn't play like that at all. Rather than controlling the opponent down and that we're negating their effects and stopping them from doing things again, we're actually more about removing their monsters with our trap cards. So we've got the Torrentials and the Compulses, like I mentioned. Compulse being very, very good, not only because it doesn't destroy, it sends stuff back to the hand, but you can also send your own cards back to the hand. So your Arianna, for example, which is this in-archetype Stratos, you could bounce this back and then get another search later in the turn. And the Lovely Labyrinth doesn't care which side of the field the monster leaves, which side of the field the monster that leaves the field is on. You can bounce your own monster with Compulse, and that will trigger Lovely Labyrinth, as well as a bunch of your other effects as well. So, again, very, very nice. The Compulses. I've always liked this card. I mean, I'm a Yugi boomer, so I'm used to playing stuff with, like, Torrential or Compulsary there. The Dogmatika Punishment is particularly nice as well because it obviously not only destroys a card with its own effect, but then, you know, as we've all probably seen happen at least once while playing, you can then send Elder Entity Natis off of Dogmatika Punishment to destroy another card of the field with the Natis's effect. And then, again, if you've got the lovely Labrynth in play, when you activate the Dogmatika Punishment, you get even one more destruction on top of that. So this archetype is really all just about getting a whole lot of value out of just like one activation of a card there. The extra deck might look a little bit random, like it actually looks very random at a glance, but everything in here actually does have a purpose. The Natises, again, are here to be sent off of the Dogmatika Punishment to destroy a card straight up right away. The Wind Pegasus, Adagnister, and PSY-Frame Lord Omega are actually also here to be sent off Dogmatika Punishment. Wind Pegasus will allow you to shuffle a card back, but a card has to be destroyed. Or a card you control, rather, has to be destroyed in order to get that effect. So it's a little bit situational, but can be potentially pretty good in certain situations. Same with the PSY-Frame Lord Omega. It'll shuffle a card back that's in the graveyard back into the deck. So if you really need to do that, and again, you've got a Dogmatika Punishment down, you have the option to do that as well. Caesar, you know, we're playing the level 4 Fiend monsters, so you can actually make Caesar. Even though we're not playing any other DD stuff, we are... in the main deck, rather, we are playing Marksman to stack on top of that in the extra deck. And then, of course, the Deviser King Deus Machinex. So you do actually have the option to go into that here. If you happen to have, like, again, two level 4 monsters in play, you can go Caesar, and then Tell, and then a Machinex on top of that. Or, if you wanted to, you could also battle with Tell and then go into Zeus. Bagosska's here for some additional floodgating if we need it. We don't usually need to, but it's the option is there. And then, of course, here for Link monsters, we've got Linkuriboh and Relinquished Anima, since we do have the Absolute King Backjack. Sometimes you do want to just normal summon this and send it off for Linkuriboh on turn 1. And then we've got Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy, to potentially go into Knightmare Unicorn, to potentially go into Access Code, just to have it, you know, this line just in case. And then, of course, the Underworld Chaos Goddess acting as a floodgate as well. So again, even though the extra deck looks really random, these cards are actually all here for a reason. They do serve a purpose, and they can all, for the most part, except for the Natises and the other stuff you send off punishment. The rest of it, the other 11 cards, can be summoned in this deck. Alright, so I know I pretty much just went through the extra deck card for card. Now let's go ahead and break down the main deck card by card, and then after that, I've got some gameplay for us to jump into. So, we are playing in the main deck here. 1 Absolute King Backjack, 3 Absolute King Backjack, not 1, 3 copies of this card. 3 Maxx, 1 Labrynth Stovie Torbie, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Labrynth Chandragalier, 1 Ariane, the Labyrinth Servant, 3 Arianna, the Labyrinth Servant, 1 Lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle, 1 Nibiru, the Primal Being, 3 Pot of Extravagance, 2 Labrynth Labyrinth, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Torrential Tribute, 3 Compulsary Evacuation Device, 3 Infinite Impermanence, 3 Dogmatika Punishment, 3 Welcome Labrynth, and then 2 Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch. And extra deck, I'll just review it real quick card by card. We're playing 2 Elder Entity Natis, 1 Wind Pegasus Adagnister, 1 PSY-Frame Lord Omega, 1 DDD Wave King Caesar, 1 number 41 Bagosska the Terribly Tired Tapir, 1 DDD Marksman King Tell, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 DDD Deviser King Deus Machinex, 1 Linkuriboh, 1 Relinquished Anima, 1 Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, 1 Access Code Talker, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. So there it is, there's the deck list there. Now let's take a look at some gameplay. This first duel here is going to be against a DDD deck. These games are actually all going to be from the Duelist Cup, since of course that started, you know, at the same time as the new selection pack came out. I figured I'd just kill 2 birds with 1 stone, get a little bit of leveling up in on the Duelist Cup there while I get my games for these deck profiles in. So we take the first turn here. This deck obviously wants to go first, so that way you can set all of your trap cards. I'm going to start by activating Pot of Extravagance. You always banish 6 in this deck. Even though you can use the extra deck cards, it's like you don't really ever use them. So they're just kind of there to have the option to be able to go into them. Or again to send off of the Dogmatika Punishment. So you always go for 6. We're going to do that and draw a couple of cards here. After that, I've got the Labrynth Chandragalier here. I can send that with the Absolute King Backjack to set. I'm going to set the field spell. Normally, you would always want to set Welcome Labrynth. This is one of the most important cards to get online early. That way you can get your lovely Labrynth out of the deck. But since we already have a copy in our hand, we can just set the field spell. Welcome Labrynth gets a whole lot better when the field spell is in play, because the field spell's ability to destroy a card is not a separate effect. I've noticed that people aren't really chaining, like, in response to the activation of Welcome Labrynth when they've got something on the field that, like, they want to, I would think would want to protect. I think some people think that this is, like, this destruction effect is its own effect. No. If you read the wording, it actually adds it, more or less adds it to the effect of Welcome Labrynth. So if you're playing against this deck, do be mindful of that, of the Labrynth Labyrinth here. So yeah, like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and set all these cards after flipping up my Labrynth Labyrinth, setting the Labyrinth in order to, again, get a bonus off of Welcome Labyrinth. I actually ended up finding another Welcome Labyrinth off the top of the deck here with the Absolute King Backjack. So we did end up setting one with the Chandragalier, but it didn't ultimately matter, but that's totally fine. I'm, of course, going to want to activate this Welcome Labyrinth and not this one, because this one being revealed, my opponent's going to know that it's Welcome Labyrinth. This one, on the other hand, they don't know what this is yet, so... Although my opponent should be able to figure out, I guess if they know this archetype, that, you know, I do have a Welcome Labyrinth down since I searched the Labrynth Labyrinth instead of the Welcome Labyrinth. All the same, I'm going to not only wait until they have something to destroy, but also, again, activate specifically the Welcome Labyrinth that I set off of Backjack's ability that was revealed. So I'll activate this to get the lovely Labyrinth in play. You want this lovely Labyrinth online, I find, usually as soon as possible. In most circumstances, I would actually just activate the Welcome Labyrinth during the draw phase, but because I had the field spell in play, I wanted to make sure that I was able to destroy a card on the opponent's field as well. And since we destroyed a card on the opponent's field, off of the effect of a trap card, because again, remember, Labrynth Labyrinth actually changes the effect of Welcome Labyrinth, it doesn't destroy the card itself. We also get to activate our lovely Labyrinth's effect too. And then the Dragalier will get to activate because, to add itself back to the hand because we destroyed a card via a trap card's effect. But the opponent's got a call by for it, that's totally fine, I don't care about that at all. Was not planning on doing anything else with this Dragalier. Dragalier and the Stove are really honestly here just to get Welcome Labyrinth set up on turn 1. That's really the only reason why I play them. So here my opponent's going to special summon a Kepler right into my huge swath of back row. I'll flip up an Imperm, and that's just going to be the end of the game right there. You might have noticed that even if my opponent hadn't conceded to the Imperm there, I still had tons of removal if they had somehow more options with the Compulsary down, a Torrential down, and what was the other one? Oh, it was another Welcome Labyrinth, that's right. So we did still have some more removal options. Torrential, obviously you want to save that for last because I don't want to be destroying my own lovely Labyrinth, and honestly, Torrential, right now I have 2 copies just because it's pretty often I actually don't want to activate it because I've got lovely Labyrinth in play. So I might even end up sending that out of the deck for like Ice Dragon's Prison or something. That was one of the trap cards that like barely missed making the cut. And Ice Dragon's Prison might even be better than the Archfiend's Glitch, but I just want to try out the Archfiend's Glitch also because it's a newer card there. So, but yeah, we were able to pretty handily defeat DDDs. You might have even noticed that the card that we destroyed from their hand off of Lovely Labyrinth was DDD Griffin. So that's exactly what I wanted to hit, was a key combo piece there. But yeah, that's a pretty ideal game for Labyrinth. It's pretty much how we want every single game to go in a perfect world. We go first, we set up our lovely Labyrinth from the deck, and then we just set a whole bunch of cards and just disrupt them. So there is that game. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So this duel here is going to be against Dragon Link. Specifically, it's one that's running it's a 60 card variant that's running the Dragon Maid and the Red Eyes packages. I don't know if it's running Sterling Safer. I didn't see it, so I'm not sure. And being in the Duelist Cup, I can't confirm my opponent's decks, so... here we're going to take the second turn. Definitely not ideal for this deck, but, we are playing Maxx and Ash Blossom in the gang just in case that does happen. So, now here my opponent normal summons the Chamber Dragon Maid and then goes into the Striker Dragon. You notice I did not Maxx, even though I've said in the past, like, oh, I like to Maxx in response to decks that I know have Link 1s, like, you know, Dragon Link. To be honest, I just wasn't being particularly thoughtful in the moment of the fact that it could be Dragon Link. I was just, you know, I saw a Dragon Maid monster, and actually, funnily enough, my opponent kind of got me here. The fact that they have a Dragon Maid icon and the mate, as soon as I saw the Chamber Dragon Maid, you know, I was just like, okay, so they're playing Dragon Maid, obviously. Honestly, when they added the Tiding, that could have been a tip-off that they were playing Dragon Link, as a Dragon Maid deck would probably want to add the Fusion spell in order to go for the Shio on turn 1. So when they added this, technically there is a window where I could have flipped the toggle to on and activated Maxx, which I technically should have done again, but you know, whatever. We're not going to play perfectly every single time. Now I do know that it is Dragon Link, so I'm pretty confident that they're not going to be able to get another special summon except off an effect. All the same, I'll just go ahead and fire off the Maxx in response to the grass, just to be safe. Opponent's going to respond with a Royal Quick Launch, which I'm a little jealous of. That does look very pretty, in order to get the Rocket Recharger out of the deck. From there, they're going to go into the Hieratic Seal, which makes sense. You know, under Maxx, this is usually the play you go for, is just go into the Hieratic Seal before setting a card and passing. Managed to rip an Imperm off the top of the Hieratic Seal, which is an okay job, but we managed to... oops, sorry, I didn't mean to throw that in fast forward. I meant to put this away. We got the Arianna off of the draw for turn, which is very, very good. Arianna is, you know, it's a 3-of. It's our ideal normal summon, you know, on turn 1, or just, you know, on our first turn in general. We're going to usually pretty much always add the Welcome Labyrinth, which we did this time as well. Again, the only time where I wouldn't add Welcome Labyrinth is pretty much just if I already had it. In that case, it just depends on what the rest of my hand looks like. You know, you could potentially add the Field Spell, you could potentially add either the Chandelier or the Stove, although there's not really many worlds in which I want to add that. But yeah, if you have the Welcome Labyrinth, it's probably going to be the Field Spell that you end up adding. In any case, I'm just going to go ahead and battle here. Now, even though my opponent's going to use the Hieratic Seal to try to bounce my Arianna, normally I really wouldn't mind this, honestly. Like I said, the deck profile, I usually end up compulsing my own Arianna a decent amount of the time, just to get the effect again and to trigger, like, my lovely Labyrinth and some other effects there. But the Hieratic Seal does also have an effect that will special summon a dragon from their deck, not even negating the effects, just changing the attack and defense points. And I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to call by this Hieratic Seal in order to prevent... It'll actually prevent both the bounce and the summon, because it'll obviously negate the Hieratic Seal's effect just outright, so that's pretty nice. Yeah, again, I could battle over the monster here, but, like, for example, it could be easy. It's easy enough for it to just be, like, Absorado Dragon, and then they send that, I battle over it, and they search for a rocket monster, and they have plays on their turn. So I want to stop these plays as much as possible. Plus, I'm not going to be able to set call by anyway, because I've got 5 trap cards to set. And then my opponent just concedes before even really, you know, going into their turn at all. But, you know, the plan was to, during their draw phase, flip up the Welcome Labyrinth, get the lovely lady, and then from there, you know, we've obviously got a lot of stuff to stop our opponent's plays. They're working with a relatively limited number of cards. I believe it was 4 after drawing for a turn. And they've already used, you know, some of the stuff to try to combo off early, so, like, earlier on the first turn. So we have, you know, we know they have limited resources. We know that we have a lot of resources to deal with their limited resources, and our opponent realizes this as well, giving us the win. So there is that game. Let's go into the next one. So this one here is going to be against Branded Despia. If I remember right, this game's actually a bit perplexing. One of the more interesting games against Branded Despia I've had. Interesting. You'll see what I mean. We're going to take the second turn again, but we fortunately opened with Maxx again, so, you know, I do see some people say very occasionally, like, why do you put 3 Maxx into every deck? I mean, this is literally exactly why, right? Because more often than not, it's like, I don't know about more often than not, but often enough is what I meant to say. You'll end up taking the second turn, and, you know, then you're going to really wish you had Maxx. Long story short there. So, opponent starts with the Prosperity for 3, revealing Maxx, Despian Comedy, and Albaz the Ashen. It's a very interesting Prosperity from the opponent here. And they decided to take Maxx of all things. Alright, that makes sense, you know. Especially, it's not going to be very good against this deck, but obviously our opponent doesn't know what we're playing yet. So, but I think, given that they didn't have any other live cards in hand, that was the right call, because Albaz the Ashen and Despian Comedy by themselves do not make for very many live plays, which, by the way, is incidentally why I don't play either of these cards in my Despian decks, is for that exact reason. They're nice cards, but they're both a bit win more. They don't really do anything to like progress your actual game state or like combo or board state or anything, so they're just going to set one card and pass. Totally fine with me. We ripped an Extravagance off the top. I'll obviously leave the turn by activating that. And the opponent fires off a Maxx. This is one of the reasons I called this game quote-unquote interesting. I don't really know what world you would ever want to Maxx in response to a Pot of Extravagance. This is usually an indicator that your opponent's playing a slower and or back row based deck. The fact that I banished 6 cards from my extra deck should decidedly determine that I'm not using it, but my opponent saw fit to Maxx in response anyway, so, I don't know, whatever, we'll take it. I mean, really, even then, you could have waited for an effect to, I don't know, whatever. I'm going to normal summon the Arianna. They're going to reveal the Impermanent response. That's a more reasonable response, I think, or the use of Disruption, rather. It's ultimately fine, though, because I do have the Welcome Labrynth anyway. I've got 2 copies of it, actually, not that I need to, but I'll definitely set both of them, set my whole hand here, before passing back to the opponent. So, I think that Maxx in response to the Extravagance was more just like a reflex, I guess. Maybe they weren't familiar with Pot of Extravagance and then just, decided to fire off the Maxx in response. So, it really is funny. It's such a meme, but it's also so true that Yu-Gi-Oh players don't read. But I can't think. I was just laughed because I was about to advise, like, make sure you're reading cards before you activate your responses. I don't know any other card game that I would feel the need to give that advice, but I do when I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh. So for whatever that says. In any case, opponent's gonna activate Branded Lost. I was spawned with Welcome Labrynth. I should have had my toggle set to on. I actually really should have used this during the draw phase in order to get the lovely Labrynth out a little bit earlier, but it's fine. We'll just flip it up now. And I'm going to keep my toggle on now so that way, I can use this effect in response to the activation of Branded Lost, and then I can use the Ghastly glitch in response to the resolution. If you're wondering how I was able to, resolve the effect to summon the lovely Labrynth, and then, without the opponent doing anything, then use the Ghastly glitch, that's how I did it there. I flipped my toggle from auto to on, so... Yeah, I'll send the Backjack to the graveyard in order to destroy the Branded Lost. That way I'll be able to actually respond to my opponent's fusion abilities. I want to make sure we definitely do that there. And then by sending the Backjack from the deck to the graveyard, actually, I'm able to use its effects to rearrange the top of my deck, and then also in the same, not chain link. Well, I could have done it in the chain link, but you don't want to do it that way. But after that chain resolves, I'm then able to use the Backjack's other quick effect in order to set the Imperm for my graveyard. My opponent then responds by summoning Fallen of Albaz, discarding the Despian Tragedy for its effect. I've got Infinite Impermanence that, they saw me set that I'm going to flip up. And that's going to resolve. Now, I think, here's the thing. I think my opponent was just a little mistaken here, and this is actually a mistake that I've made too, and as you can see, my opponent ended up conceding right afterward. I think that my opponent thought that the Despian Tragedy effect was going to activate off of being discarded off of the Fallen of Albaz, which it's not. It has to be sent by a card effect, not as a cost for an effect. So obviously they aren't going to get that Tragedy effect, and then they can't get the Albaz effect either, obviously, because I've got the Imperm down. So at that point, my opponent's only got 1 card left aside from their more or less 1800 vanilla Fallen of Albaz against my multiple back rows and lovely Labyrinth. Then at that point, they can see, well, their connection failed, but it was one of those connection fails where it's like, they pretty much conceded. So, yeah, that does it for that game. Let's go straight into the next one. Now, this duel is going to be against Magistus, which I've never once in my life played against a Magistus deck. So to be playing against one now of all times, like in the Duelist Cup when there's all this other new stuff out, is quite a time to play against Magistus for the first time. But we're going to get the first turn here. I've got the Chandragalier again with the Backjack, so we get to set up the Welcome Labrynth, and we also get to stack our deck with Backjack as well. I'll set a couple of imperms before passing it over to the opponent. However, with this Backjack, It's interesting that the replay doesn't actually show you reordering the cards, because this backjack here, from what I recall, did it actually have... No, yeah, I did have a card to set. I just activated it in response to the Labyrinth, that's right. I was trying to remember if because there are some times where you just backjack and don't reveal any cards. I thought that might have happened in this case, but no. It was just me activating the... You want to do that, by the way, if you're, like, in a scenario like that where you've got Welcome Labyrinth and Backjack to use, and you want to use them on the same chain link. Make Labyrinth chain link 1 and make Backjack chain link 2, because if you do it the other way around, then your top card will no longer be... Your deck will get shuffled, and the top card will no longer be the trap card that you stacked. It'll be a random card. So with Backjack as chain link 2, the trap card is going to get set, and then as chain link 1 resolves, then the monster will get summoned out of the deck and the deck will get shuffled. Or at least it would if you're Welcome Labyrinth and you get Ash Blossoms like I did, but it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, here, so I'll fire off the Maxx in response to the Zoroark's effect to special summon a spellcaster from the hand. And interestingly enough, they equipped the Artemis, which I've used this card before in invoked packages, but only to get like only to get a light monster. I've never actually used the equip effect to add a Magicis monster from deck to hand. So I'm definitely going to want to get rid of this so that way it can't activate the equip effect. And I'm going to do so on the resolution of this Endymion summon here. I'll get my draw off Maxx first, and then yeah, on the resolution of that summon, I'm going to use the Dogmatika. What is it called? The Dogmatika, I can't remember, Punishment to send the Elder Entity to Tis. That'll destroy the Zoroark before they have a chance to use the Artemis effect. And, you know, as a throw-in bonus, I can even blow up the face-down card off from the Tis's effect. And then I get my Chandragalier back since I destroyed a card with a trap card. So, yeah, that's kind of just how, like, the general flow of the deck goes a lot of the time, or how it goes ideally, right? Just using our disruption to further enable our resources there. They're going to get to fuse for this Magicis thing, but I'll take the 2000, that's fine. In phase, I'm definitely going to want to set up the Welcome Labyrinth to use on the opponent's turn. Even though our first one got hit with the you know, Ash Blossom, we can pretty easily just set up another one here. I even drew the field spell, so now I get to remove the fusion monster, and they actually don't even get a chance to use the fusion monster's effect to equip my lovely Labyrinth, because remember, the destruction is happening as part of the resolution of Welcome Labyrinth's effect. It's not going to be on a separate chain link, because it's not the effective Labyrinth that's activating, it's the resolution of Welcome Labyrinth that's had its effects modified by Labrynth Labyrinth. Labrynth Labyrinth has got to be one of the more interesting cards to pronounce, I think. You know, not even for just, like, having a weird name. Well, not for having a difficult to pronounce name, let's put it that way. It does have a bit of an odd name. I think it's cool, though. I like this archetype. I think it's fun. I think it's very fun having 5 back row cards and not letting my opponent do anything. I'm sure they would agree. No. But, I mean, that is what the deck's all about. But again, you know, no floodgates here. We're not stopping our opponent from activating effects or special summoning monsters. We're just using our disruption, that's all. That's kind of what's been happening all format, honestly, with Branded Despia there. I was going to say and Sword Soul, but no, Sword Soul does decidedly use negates, but Branded Despia not about negates, all about disruption, just like this deck here. And there we go, there is that win against Magicis. Now, I've got one more game for us to look at, so let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. And finally, our last duel here, it's going to be against Runix, the other new deck, which I also do plan on showing off. I did use my other craft points that I got from dismantling extra stuff to finish that deck as well. So do look forward to that in the, probably within the next couple of days. I've got a couple other videos I want to get out before I keep covering more new decks. And in addition to more like new decks like Runic, I've got, you know, some other decks that aren't quite new, but due to the structure deck, I was able to build a couple of decks there. So definitely be looking forward to those too. I'll be eager to show those off too. So here I'm this Imperm on the Moonin, right? You might think like, well, because the only Runic continuous spell card is the one that, well, it's going to get added here in a second. It's not really one that I'm too concerned about. The Runic Allure is what it's called. The main reason that I actually used the Imperm was to get the Moonin out of the way there. The Moonin's effect to, banish itself and negate a card that would, a card effect that would target a runic card or set card in the field. I'm definitely going to be targeting their cards with my destruction, so I want to make sure this is not on the field. So I Impermed it, hoping that maybe they would actually activate it, because again, a runic allure is like whatever. I don't care about this card. This is fine. They can get one extra banish per quick play spell. I don't care about that. Again, I do care about my disruption later being negated, so that's why I activated the Imperm there. That might have looked a little bit weird. There are, even in this deck, which doesn't run very monsters, against this deck, which doesn't run very many monsters, rather, there are better Imperm targets, but quote-unquote better Imperm targets, but in the moment, that actually was, I think, the right call there. So, yeah, I'll run off some of the backjack and link it off for Linkuriboh, rearranging my deck, get in for 300 because I can, why not? And then I'll set my back rows and pass over to the opponent here. Don't have a Welcome Labrynth to set up this time, but I will use the backjack effect as early as possible. Don't mind this Compulsary, sending my Linkuriboh. It was a misclick. It's not the right play. And I know it was the incorrect play. Funnily enough, I do know that Compulsing my own extra deck monster was not the right call, but in any case, yeah. We do manage to find the Welcome Labrynth off of the backjack, so we get to set up the lovely lady that way, and we get to blow up our opponent's face down card. And I guess they just really didn't have anything else going on in their hand, because even though they had the field spell, which gives that deck a ton of gas, I've seen it happen. I'm sure all of you have as well, is what I meant to say by this point. So, but I guess, they just didn't have anything, which is definitely a plus for us. It's another win in the books there for Labrynth. So those are the games. Let's go ahead and move now to the outro. Okay, I want to thank everybody, as always as ever, for watching all the way to the very end. That does mean a lot to me. It's a great way to support the channel as well. Other ways you can support the channel, if you would like to comment and or subscribe. Comments, let me know what you think of the deck and the build as well. Labrynth, I don't know that it's going to be, too good of a deck at this time. They are still missing a couple of pretty key pieces of support that'll be coming, probably in a few months, honestly. It'll probably be, a little while before we get that support. Kind of like the Flaunderies got their Advent of Adventure card a little bit later. It's going to be the same thing with Labrynth. Once they get that extra support, I'm definitely going to come back to the deck because it's going to make the deck a lot stronger, and I'm very much looking forward to that. I might still mess around with the deck in the meantime. If you particularly want to see some more videos with it, feel free to let me know in the comments there. And then, oh yeah, also if you'd like to support on Patreon, again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, feel free to check out that link in the description below to see the Patreon and the daily Master Duel content that's getting produced over there. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. So without further ado, this is XLex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.